I am live. That's a beautiful thing. I'm waiting to come up on Instagram. There we go. That's a beautiful thing, being live. Okay. It's going to be some fire today. It's going to be some judgment today. You don't even understand the kind of fire that's finna happen. If you're in the comments, give me a shout out so I know you're here. Because y'all know how I do. I'm going to talk about what I'm going to talk about. Then I'm going to put your comments on the screen because I love your comments. I love to hear what you guys have to say. Okay. So hold on. I'm trying to get the link, my live link, because I'm going to let folks know that I'm here. This has been one of the funniest weeks for comic book, sci-fi, comic world. So normally it's either feast or famine. Normally you have like a slow week and it seems like nothing happens. And then you have those weeks where it seems like all kind of stuff happen at the same time. And when stuff like that happens, because there was more stuff that I wanted to cover today that I realized I didn't have time to cover in one video. So I had to pick the stuff that I want to talk about today. And what I'm going to talk about today is this right here. I'm going to talk about lanterns, Firefly, and Doomsday. Okay, not in that order, but that's the stuff I'm going to talk about. Lanterns, Firefly, and Doomsday, because man, the past actually 24 hours. What's up, Eric? I see you, Eric, in the comments. The past 24 hours, just on my Twitter feed, have been, what's up, Jason? I see you, have been intense and insane. So, of course, we had to talk about it, but I'm not going to talk about it in that order. Let's start with Firefly. So let me actually pull that up so you can see that, because that is from an Instagram post. So I don't think I can get copyright struck for that. So you should be able to see that now. Okay. All right, let me make that a little bit bigger if I can. And let's check that out, because this is major news in the comic, sci-fi, fantasy corner of the world, corner of the internet. This is a big deal, but I'm going to give you my thoughts and my feedback on it. So let's check this out.
Joel?
Wait, are we?
Yes, we are.
Shiny.
I was hoping you'd say that.
Okay. So we've got that going. So Fillion has been teasing a Firefly reunion of some kind for a while now. And he said that, I'm going to show you the tweet where he says that. He says, it's not a podcast or, that kind of thing. Well, here, I'll just pull it up so you can see it. Nathan Fillion says the Firefly announcement on March 15th won't be for a podcast amid reboot speculation. Some of you have guessed convention, podcast, or crossover. You are wrong. So let's look at the one where he's talking to everybody else. So hold on. So let me refresh that because I want to see that whole thing from the top where he's talking to everybody else. I love how Morena's in her uniform from her show, the new show that she's on. But anyway, let's look at that.
Are we doing this?
Oh, we're doing this.
Wait, are we?
Yes, we are.
Has the day finally come?
The day has finally come.
Does this mean it's time?
It's time. So, it's happening. Oh, it's happening.
I knew it would.
Are we doing this?
Okay, so let me give you my thoughts on that. Right off the bat, I don't think this is a good idea for several reasons. First of all, and I posed this question on Twitter this week, what is Joss Whedon's involvement? Is it going to involve Whedon and or Tim Minear? Because if you don't have that writing team, this is not going to be the same show. I'm sorry. If you don't have the writers that made the show what it was in the first place, then just bringing the cast back is not a guarantee of recapturing that magic. I'll talk more about that in a minute. But my first question is Whedon involved? And at what level? Is Tim Minear involved? Okay? Because if not, this is not going to be what people think it's going to be. That's number one. Number two, it's not going to be the same show without the whole cast. So we know, spoiler alert, we know that Wash died, and we know that Book died, and we know that Ron Glass died in real life. So no chance of him coming back because he has passed on. And we know in the Serenity movie that Book dies and Wash dies. Now, I've always had a way to bring Wash back, so I'll just spoil that for you right here. I think it should be discovered that Wash downloaded his brain and his soul into a computer program, and then it gets uploaded into the Firefly computer. So it's like in Star Trek when the command crew talks to the computer, that computer is now Wash. And that also puts things in jeopardy. That means they have to keep the ship intact because that's the only place Wash lives now. And I know Whedon would never go for that because he doesn't like stuff like that. He wouldn't like that kind of technology because you really wouldn't have that even a futuristic Western. But you would in a Star Trek kind of thing. So I always thought it would be so cool to bring Alan Tudyk back and have Wash actually be the living computer in Serenity, which means they always have to be concerned about what happens to the ship because that's the only place that Wash lives now. He's actually in the computer. So think about the Vision and Jarvis except in reverse. So the way it happened in the MCU was that we got introduced to Jarvis as the AI companion of Tony Stark, you know, both in his lab and in his armor. And then eventually Ultron pulls all that out, and then Banner and Tony Stark pull all that out. And they make Vision. So Vision is a conglomeration of a bunch of different things, but he sounds like Jarvis. So I'm talking about that idea, but in reverse. So they took an AI assistant character and turned him into a synthezoid, a person, and I say we take a person that's died and turn him into an AI onboard character into the ship. And that's how we get Alan Tudyk back. So I've always thought that would work, but I know Whedon wouldn't want stuff like that in this type of world because that's too Star Trek-y. And this is supposed to be gritty and grounded. So that's number two. It's not going to be the same show without the same cast. And we've already got Wash and Book missing, and Ron Glass has died, so there's no chance of it coming back. So the way I would do with that is I would show flashbacks So I would use unused footage of a book talking to the crew, outtakes or stuff that's still usable that maybe we didn't see in the series. Because, they got plenty of stuff that was cut from the shows. Like, remember those behind the scenes extra scenes where River was talking about her and Simon were going to get married? That was hilarious. I mean, it's weird, but I mean, they're weird. But that was hilarious, that whole cut scene. And so we can use footage of cut scenes that never made it on the air with Shepard book in them as flashbacks to bring Ron Glass back. And then finally, I read this week, I didn't read it personally, but somebody told me that Adam Baldwin said he would never come back because he would never play an old Jane, because he said in Jane's line of work, his line of work is not the kind of work where people grow old. So he thought that playing an old Jane would be disingenuous, which I thought was an interesting point. But I bet if that check is right, I bet if the money is PHAT, I bet you that. I bet you'll come back then, because a whole lot of people, a whole lot of actors have said they'll never go back to the TV show that made them famous, and a whole lot of actors think they're better than the show that blew them up, and they're going to have this incredible movie career, and that happens often. And then a lot of them end up having to go back and do convention circuits and a whole bunch of stuff for that one little TV show that they despise, that they think they're better than, and now they got to come back to it. So it's still not going to be the same show with number one, without the same writing, number two, without the full cast. It's not going to be the same show. And number three, the actors are not these characters anymore. These characters were at a very particular stage of life. So what has it been? 20 years since we've seen them? So in the book continuation, Zoe was actually pregnant when Wash died. So she ended up becoming a single mom. I would definitely like to see that. Summer Glau has said that she thought River by that point would have her own ship. She'd be a captain of her own ship. So we'd have to try to figure out, because remember that River got healed in Serenity. So if that's the case, Simon then would be free to go on and pursue his life with Kaylee, which he did in the book continuation. So these characters are not the same characters. So you're talking about a scrappy band of rebels, and River was supposed to be 17 during the TV show and movie days. So you're talking about a scrappy band of rebels in late teens, early 20s, maybe. Jane was pushing up on 30, early 30s. Maybe Anar was early 30s, but so we're talking about that high school to touching your 30s range. The actors aren't there anymore. So these characters aren't going to be them. They're going to have to be played at a later stage of life. Now, maybe that can be pulled off, but maybe it can't. Because maybe they won't be as interesting if they're not the scrappy band of rebels that we remember. So I'm not saying a hard line no that it can't be done. I'm saying I'm kind of skeptical without those three elements, without the original writing team, without the full original cast, and without knowing how to compensate for them being at a different stage of life. I don't think this is going to be what people think. And then number four is if we have any kind of DEI and woke writers involved, if we have anybody talking about Firefly needs to be updated for a modern audience, as soon as you put the phrase modern audience in anything, it's over, it's ruined. Because there is no modern audience, and if there is, they're so small, they're insignificant. And nothing that has been attempted to be retooled for a modern audience has worked. I'm going to talk about that some more later, but it definitely amazes me how none of the DEI changes of the last 10 years have actually worked, and yet they keep doubling down. That's amazing to me. So sound off in the comments. Let me know what you think about this potential Firefly reunion, because Fillion says it's not a podcast and it's not a reunion show. So what is it going to be, a one-off? Is it going to be a TV series? Is it going to be a TV movie? Is it going to be a YouTube movie? Is it going to be like indie film? What's it going to be? So he said he's going to announce in a little over a week. I think they said March 15th. So we'll see. We'll have to see how that pans out. So I'm not saying I'm pessimistic about it. I'm saying I'm cautious about it because it's got some stuff it's going to have to overcome. Because what you don't want to do is bring something back and ruin, the stuff that you had before. Because if you do that, people are just going to ignore it and decanonize it and just go back to the stuff they love. If they were going to do this, they should have done this a long time ago. If they were going to do this, they should have done it a long time ago. But then the MCU blew up and Whedon blew up, and then he exploded and got canceled. And so sound off in the comments. Let me know what you think about this potential Firefly reunion. Now, next up, this is another one. Lord have mercy. This is another one. How can I say this? I hope a lot of this stuff isn't true. If it is, it won't surprise me, but it does not make me optimistic for the movie's success. So what I'm going to talk about next is the plot leaks for Avengers Doomsday. Okay. So, like I said, take these with a grain of salt. Several reviewers, several YouTube people have talked about this. So it's possible that this is legit. Possible. Okay, but let's go through them because some of them are so awful until I'm scratching my head. Okay. According to Comic Book Movie, the full plot of Avengers Doomsday has leaked online. The story details suggest that this will be a major chapter in the MCU's multiverse saga, bringing together all of the Marvel properties in a way that would have been unimaginable until recently. That is not a bad idea if the story's good. The Fantastic Four and the X-Men and the Avengers in the same space would actually be phenomenal. That's going to be a huge film, though. Not everybody's going to have a chance to get all the screen time that you might want for your favorite character or your favorite actor. The concept of it is not necessarily bad on its own, but what's the story? That said, these are only rumors and there is still time for reshoots and major pivots. Still, if the alleged leaks are accurate, there could be spoilers below. So there's my spoiler alert. If you don't want to know anything about the movie, then fast forward to the next part. Reintroducing incursions. Doomsday will reportedly center around incursions, catastrophic multiversal events where two separate universes collide and share the same space. Introducing Multiverse of Madness. Incursions are triggered by excessive multiverse interference. And the only way to prevent one is for one of the colliding worlds to be destroyed. What that means is, in plain English, is when somebody time travels or when somebody jumps from their dimension to a new dimension, if you're changing events that shouldn't be changed, or if you're living on a world where you don't belong, that has a ripple effect. Now, that's, for the most part, always been true in sci-fi, that, the butterfly effect. If you go back in time and change some stuff, there's going to be huge repercussions. Wait a minute, I have to sneeze. Hold on 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. So it's always been a thing in sci-fi that if you go back in the time stream, now there are different time travel models. You've heard me talk about them often. There's the Terminator model, which means everything's elliptical, which means it's all in the same reality. The past causes the future, causes the past. There's Back to the Future, which is branch theory, which means when you go back and you change the past, you create a new branch, but the old one is gone. Because in that movie, Marty never actually gets back to his original timeline because it's gone. Then there's 12 Monkeys, where you can't change the past. So any of the changes that you make, time folds them into what already happened, which 12 Monkeys is brilliant with it. If you haven't watched it, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but that movie's brilliant. Just absolutely brilliant. And then there's the deja vu model, the Denzel movie. That is basically multi-branch convergence theory, which means that you can have multiple branches of time going at the same time and they all converge. But the sleight of hand, the trick is that they converge conveniently. Because the whole thing about the deja vu movie is that the multi-branches of time, because there are at least 3 time streams in deja vu, the key there is that they converge conveniently. And then you have a combination of those things in Star Trek. And then you have the movie The Butterfly Effect. The Butterfly Effect is the time travel model I hate the most. That's the model that says you can't be happy. So the only time that time will leave you alone is if you give up the one you love. That's the same thing they said about Barry Allen and his mother dying. All of a sudden becomes a fixed point in time, and him trying to change that wrecks everything. That's how we got the Flashpoint paradox, that he has to let his mother die. I can't stand it because Zoom did that in the first place. And then all of a sudden Barry can't fix it, which I call chicken scratch. So there are many, many models of time travel and multiverse theory, and they're not the same thing. What Wanda did was not time travel. What Wanda did was go from dimension to different worlds until she found a world where her kids were alive. Okay, so there are many different ways they can do this. So it depends on if they use one particular theory or if they use a combination of theories for this incursion thing. The only way to prevent one is for one of the colliding worlds to be destroyed. That's not true per se. Sometimes the timeline has to be destroyed, but not the whole world per se. But then sometimes that's the same thing. So it just depends. Film is expected to open with Deadpool and Wolverine sent to Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man universe by Beast. Equipped with a device capable of destroying that world, a battle ensues. Wolverine activates the device, sacrificing himself along Spider-Man, while Deadpool returns to his own reality. Meanwhile, Professor X looks on in sorrow. Okay. I've heard before that the movie opens with the death of Tobey's Spider-Man and the death of Wolverine. Okay, but we already know that they're coming back. So that death is not really going to have any impact. Steve Rogers' new life on Earth 828. Steve Rogers staring at his new life, or starting his new life in the past with Peggy Carter. They have a son who was shown in the trailer. Loki visits Steve and tells him this reality is going to be pruned. He helps the Rogers family move to Earth 828, a reality in which they never existed. And this is the same reality as the Fantastic Four and Tony Stark Doom. So Fantastic Four, first steps, and Tony Stark Doom, Earth 28. This is saying that Loki helped Steve and Peggy and their son go there. But their presence there is going to cause damage. Okay? So Doom meets with Richards and they talk about incursions and something's going to happen because Steve and Peggy are there. So then they want to travel to Earth 616. And remember that the MCU is not actually 616. It's the Ultimates universe. And Aman Vellani called Kevin Feige on that because the MCU is not the main Marvel continuity in the comics. It's the Ultimates universe, okay, as evidenced by Black Nick Fury, okay? But anyway, that would explain why you see the Fantastic Four ship at the end of Thunderbolts coming to the main MCU continuity because they're trying to get out of A28 before Steve Rogers and Peggy destroys it, I guess. They might have a plan to stop incursions, maybe. Next act is expected to feature the X-Men fight Earth 616 Avengers, which is the Ultimate Avengers. Battle's a small part of the film. Why are the Avengers in the X-Men's reality? Though they speculate is related to Beast's world-destroying device. So that's another thing we're going to have to deal with. Where have the X-Men been all this time? So in Deadpool and Wolverine, they were in the limbo space with Cassandra Nova, where old realities and old characters kind of go to die. So if the X-Men, the Fox X-Men, mind you, are in the same space as the MCU Avengers, how did they get there? Have they been there all this time? Where have they been? They're going to have to explain that some kind of way. So Doom and Richards' plan is explained. And also, let me say, I said this last week, but I'm going to say it again. We are never going to get a proper Dr. Doom. Okay? We're never going to get a proper Dr. Doom. So there's no need of us just, continuing to hope that we will, because we're not going to get a proper Dr. Doom. We're not going to see the Reed and Doom relationship that is in the comics that's supposed to play out, whether Doom's origin is tied into Reed. We're not going to get that, which is a shame, because we've never gotten an accurate Dr. Doom. So I've talked about that before. So Rogers is reunited with Thor. He met a version of Loki that's still alive. They wants to find him, which leads to the next part of the story. So now you see there's all type of dimension jumping and nostalgia bait, because we have the characters introduced, but they're doing multi-universe stuff. So when Steve Rogers and Thor arrive at Loki's location, they find him dead with his heart ripped out. Dr. Doom is responsible. Doom is on the double cross tip, and he wants the incursions to happen so he can resurrect his dead family. So, and that's when they reveal that Steve's presence there is what caused all this, including Tony Doom's disfigurement. And then this one, Doom kills Steve Rogers' son. Nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see that. That's definitely going to change the rating, because when you kill kids, that's a hard R. You can't kill kids in movies. If you kill kids, we're going for a hard R right there. So, but nobody wants to see that. Which is going to cut it. The reason I bring that up is because it's going to cut into the repeat playability. Okay, it's going to be a huge downer. I understand they're going for shock value, but nobody wants to see that. Okay, the final battle in the midst of all this, Thor somehow escapes and tells the Avengers, Fantastic Four, and X-Men about Doom's plan. They travel to Latveria to confront him. Thor also prays to Odin, who sends reinforcements from Valhalla. Okay. When Dr. Doom gets Loki's heart, he gained his powers, resurrects the dead, wipes their memories. Film reportedly ends with Doom sitting on the throne as God Emperor of Battleworld, which will lead us into Secret Wars. And so this is also saying that they're not saying that this version of Dr. Doom was the same Tony Stark that we met in 2008. So far, still a separate character. So he just happens to look like Tony Stark or whatever so far. So, I mean, what do you guys think of this? I mean, it's nostalgia bait, it's timeline jumping, it's multi-universe jumping, there's a whole bunch of stuff. But I mean, does that sound like an interesting plot? Maybe. I mean, maybe it could be. Part of what I'm feeling is, and this is just, my perspective. I've seen so much of this already, so I'm not really able of being objective as I need to be, because this might really wow the normies. But I've seen so many time travel shenanigans, and I've seen so many multiverse shenanigans at this point, until I'm like, well, so it seems like if this is true, all this is true, the movie is going to be counting on heavy shock moments. But I think they're going to go over like the death of Newt and Hicks in Alien 3. Maybe not that strong, because we love Newt and Hicks, and we thought Ripley and Newt and Hicks were going to be a family. So maybe not that strong like we hated in Alien 3. Maybe not that. But I mean, nobody wants to see Steve's kid die. And so, but like I said, at this point, so much of this stuff is just kind of old news to me. So I'm not really necessarily moved by any of these events. Feels like going to be heavy nostalgia, heavy shock value. But when you build it just on shock value, you have one time to get the maximum shock, unless it's a really good story. When you have a really good story and there's a big reveal at the end, if the story is good, you still want to watch that movie over and over again. Because even though you already know the reveal, the story, the way they get there, is so incredibly good and powerful. So that's possible. So if the writing is there, this is possible. But a movie where we have to watch the Marvel characters die again, we got to watch Loki die again. Because remember, Thanos kills him in the beginning of Infinity War and beats the Hulk so badly until we never see the Hulk again. Savage Hulk, I mean. But so, so it doesn't really have the same impact when you have multiverse variants. So we've seen Loki die. So we've seen him die again. We know he's still out there somewhere. We've seen Professor X die 3 times. This will be number 4. Okay. We've seen Logan die. If he dies at the beginning of this movie, that'll be at least twice. See what I'm saying? So the impact of the cumulative effect of all of this doesn't really feel like, to me, it's going to have a lot of impact, except for the shock deaths. And I don't want to see them. I don't need to see Loki with his heart ripped out. I certainly don't need to see Steve Rogers' son killed, because like I said, that's a hard R if you kill kids. And remember, we saw Tony Doom talking to Franklin at the end of First Steps. That's got to be dialed in here somewhere. What if they also have Valeria by this time? Because there's a whole backstory with Doom and Valeria in the comics if you've never read it. Because it's a funny way of cuckolding Reed, because that's all they do. But anyway, so I'm saying, if the story's there, maybe. But if these events are true, we got Spider-Man dying, we got Loki dying. I bet you all the X-Men die. We've got, Steve Rogers and Peggy's son dying. And then here I've got another question. We talked about this last week, but let me talk about this again here. Where does Sadie Sink fit into this? Now, we haven't got a confirmation that Sadie Sink is going to be Jean Grey in Spider-Man Brand New Day. That's the speculation. Everybody has said that except the studio, so we don't really know. So last time I talked about how Sadie Sink could actually be Mary Jane. But it's been revealed, or at least leaked, or supposedly, that her lines in the movie have to do with her telepathic powers. So that's why we lean towards at least a telepathic character, if it's not Jean. My theory is they're using this as a soft launch for the new round of X-Men by putting Jean in the Spider-Man movie. If that's the case, where's she going to be here? And I believe we're going to see Rebecca Romijn's Mystique in here and not Jennifer Lawrence, which is great, because I never liked Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique at all. She's just all wrong for that character. She's just all wrong. Even when the blue makeup, she never looked right to me. That's Rebecca Romijn's character. So since Singer went with the scaled lizard look, we got used to Rebecca Romijn with that look. So she owns that character as far as I'm concerned. So we got to watch them all die again. How are they going to dial in the new X-Men? Is Sadie Sink not going to show up until Secret Wars? That's possible. So, I mean, see, the thing about it is, I'm going to talk about this in my next subject. The thing about it is the opportunity here is to do some really good things. I just don't think they're going to do them. So sign off in the comments. Let me know what you think about this. If you think there's any truth to these. Do these make you want to see the movie more? Do you think that this is a good plan, a good setup, a good flow? Do you think this will have normie appeal? Or will it just appeal to us, or will it appeal to neither? Do you think, see, I still think this movie is going to open huge. I think this is going to be the biggest movie of the year in terms of opening weekend. I think this movie is going to open huge. But then the question is it going to be able to sustain that with repeat viewings? If the movie's good, yes, it will. But if not, it'll be a huge fall off. There's going to be some fall off, we know that, but how big? Okay. And that leads me to my final topic. Y'all know where I'm going. Lord have mercy, I haven't seen anything like this in a very long time. That's why I had to talk about it today. Y'all know I had to talk about it today. Haven't seen anything like this in a long time. Okay. But we've got to talk about that Lanterns trailer. That's why my background is that silly suit. We got to talk about that Lanterns trailer. Now, I'm not going to play the trailer. I wish I could. So I'll put some screenshots up because I can't get copyright stricken for those. Okay. But if I play the trailer, then, and I'm not about them copyright strikes, I ain't dealing with that. Okay. So it would be nice if we could watch it together in full time. But doesn't look like that's in the cards for today. So I'm pulling up some images so we can talk about it. But then, we got to go into the tweets because this has legitimately started a Twitter war. I'm going to say that one more time. This Lanterns trailer has legit started a Twitter flame war like I haven't seen in a long time. I haven't seen this in a long time where people have been reacting because my mentions have been blowing up for the past 24 hours nonstop, and they're still blowing up. Nonstop. I haven't seen that in a long time. I'm trying to remember the last time I saw that, honestly. So this thing has started a whole war. Superman didn't have this effect. We talked about it a lot, but it wasn't like this because people have gone crazy about this Lanterns thing. So the first thing I want to talk about, since like I said, we can't watch the trailer because I'm not risking getting copyright struck. What's up, Kenny? It's Tony. Good to see you. Also, I want you guys to give me your Instagram handles so I can tag you when I post this on Instagram, because sometimes your handles on Twitter and your handles here are not the same. So give me your Instagram handles either in the comments or on Twitter. So when I post this, I know how to find you because some of y'all haven't been able to find. Also, I've been thinking about changing my time. Some of the people I listen to, they do these late night live streams. So would that work better for us? Because I know this is an awkward time for a lot of people. Would it work better if I did a live stream really late Thursday night or really early Friday morning? Really late Thursday night or really early Friday morning. Would that work better for y'all? Let me know in the comments. Maybe I'll put a post on that. So like, because I'm up all times of night anyway, y'all know that. So would it be better if I did a late night live stream on Thursday or really early morning live stream on Friday than this time? Because maybe that'll be more convenient for more people to join in. Okay, so let me know. But anyway, starting again with the Lanterns trailer. First of all, the view, the vision, the images we have of Hal are not just him with white hair. So some people have been, on their soapbox on Twitter talking about, somebody said to me today, you've never read the comics where Hal had, gray streaks, white hair in his temples, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I stopped by to tell you that is not this look. This look is a grizzled look. This version of Hal looks like he just got off a bender. Yes, it does. This version of Hal looks like he drunk all the time. This version of Hal looked like he don't remember the last time he was sober. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. This is not the same type of Hal Jordan that we see with the white streaks. That ain't this version. This is an older version. This is grizzled. This is tired. This is just a whole bunch of things that I don't really want to see in Hal Jordan. And here's the reason why. Because we have never seen Hal Jordan in his prime in live action. We only have the Ryan Reynolds movie, and that was a bust. That was awful. And that's it. So we've never seen Hal in his prime. And still, we're not seeing him now. Also, that suit, that brown suit, looks awful. People had to recolor it to put some green in it. You ain't got no green in a Green Lantern suit? And so, I mean, I've said this before, when you have a production team where their instincts are wrong, where their vision and their direction of the character, their instincts are wrong, then it's always going to end up in a bad place. How many times do you have to see that to understand that? Butt kick man. First image is Superman broken and bleeding in the snow, rescued by a mutt that's not Crypto. No, Wonder Woman becoming a perpetrator of SA in her own movie. Diana would never do that. That vision of her is wrong. Diana would never do anything like that. So, and another great example of how a creative team can totally screw up a beloved character is, of course, the She-Hulk show. She-Hulk was a beloved character that embraced her femininity in the comics. Yes, she had a savage version, but then she embraced her hulkiness, if you will. The one on the TV show was a man-hating girl boss, So don't tell me that a creative team can not misinterpret the character, because they can. And see, another thing that's going on here is they keep saying this is like True Detective, True Detective, True Detective. There's nothing wrong with that per se, but Green Lantern, the lanterns are a cosmic force. And this is more like people on Twitter have called it, a Yellowstone spinoff, which I can see that because we've seen so little of that in this trailer. So little of anything that would represent any type of cosmic level, anything. Okay. And then another pet peeve of mine is that they're cursing so much. We've gotten to the point in society where profanity has become such a part of everyday language, and to a lot of younger people that don't stand out, but it stands out to me. And I don't need to hear them dropping F-bombs in every sentence. And also, I said this before about Supergirl. Are you going to want to let your kids watch this? How will we destroy heroes to the point where we can't let kids watch it because they're so busy being so profane? What if the kids start imitating and mimicking their lines? Is that really what you want? I don't think that's what most parents would want. I really don't. Another thing, look at this battery. I said on Twitter, that looks like a syrup bottle to me. I don't even understand this little weak, lame battery. That looked like some old school Angel Mama right there to me. But anyway, that's just me. And another thing that we can almost guarantee is going to happen, because again, we see it in the trailer. In the trailer, we see basically John Stewart telling Hal that he's old, telling Hal that he can no longer adequately do his job. And John Stewart saying it's time for Hal to step aside and let him take over. So it's not reverence and respect for the greatest Green Lantern of all time. It's you're old, you're washed up, you can't do it like you used to, so it's time for you to get off the field. That's the sentiment that was brought in with The Force Awakens with Kylo Ren. I cannot stand Kylo Ren, by the way, where he said, get rid of the past, kill it if you have to. And they broke up a statue of Darth Vader. They killed Han. They killed Luke. Carrie Fisher died in real life. They killed Admiral Akbar. I mean, they destroyed all the original characters. And lo and behold, they introduced the new characters in the hotels and theme parks. And people hated it. So what they have to do, they had to bring back the original characters, OG characters, because Star Wars ain't Star Wars without Vader, Luke, Leia, Han, Chewie, R2, 3PO, Lando, Obi-Wan, Yoda. Star Wars ain't Star Wars without them. So how can you have a show about lanterns and it's totally earthbound? Then also in the trailer, Hal makes some kind of crack about how he doesn't talk to the other lanterns because they're all aliens. He's the only human one. So some people are saying that's alluding to this happening before the Guy Gardner area. So this is set way before the time when Guy Gardner's around, because Hal is saying he's only human, but he doesn't talk to them. So, but see, the ring is supposed to translate. And I made a tweet, maybe I'll pull it up, about how Hal Jordan has had plenty of interaction with aliens, but what people seem to be forgetting is he got his ring from amzn.to. He got his ring from a dying alien, and the ring chose him. And amzn.to said, the ring has discovered you have the ability to overcome great fear. The rings come from the Owens, the planet of Oa, some little Smurf-looking blue aliens. The Green Lantern mythology is rooted in aliens. Are we not seeing that? This is what I'm trying to get you to understand. This is why I have no confidence in these writers. And people have been arguing about all this stuff on Twitter for the past 24 hours. Arguing. So I see your comments, keep them coming. I'm going to put them on the screen. But now let's go to some of these tweets I've been talking about. And you'll see what I mean. You will see what I've been talking about, because, oh my word. the way Twitter has blown up over this. Again, I don't remember the last time I saw anything like this. Okay. So there you have it. Okay. Shout out to my friend here. So there you have it. He thinks it's stupid. He doesn't understand that the green is specific to willpower. Look at how he talks about the ring, that condescending giggle. Then there's the joke about the fights. This is who they hire to make these things, people who hate it. Straight from Damon Lindelof's mouth, they removed the green from the title because they thought it was stupid. That tells you everything you need to know about lanterns. Okay, let's watch that. I don't think I'll get in trouble for this because it's all over Twitter. Let's watch that, shall we?
So you just announced a Green Lantern show.
It's called Lanterns because we all agreed that the green was stupid. So
Right.
So now it's just lanterns.
So Green Lantern, the lantern. So you can make anything you can imagine.
That if you have this magical ring,
Right.
Yes.
And the fights are still close.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. All of that just takes away any confidence I might have had that the show is going to be good. Because the people behind it think it's stupid. The people behind it are already making fun of it. What has happened every time we get a showrunner that's made fun of the source material, that doesn't take it seriously? What has happened every time? What has happened? So I said it before, you don't have to wait till you eat the food if you can smell the stink coming out of the kitchen. All right. Okay, Sir Bill Holt says, HBO's Lanterns will be yet another boring deconstruction of the male superhero. It's Earth-based. Quick shot of Hal Jordan taking flight, but there's no green aura. The vibe is much more Southwestern murder mystery than intergalactic adventure. No one will be wearing the ring that's the heart of the mythos. Metro hatred. Hero hatred. I'm sorry, I read that as Metro. Hero hatred. Talking about how he doesn't deal with the aliens. I'm the only human, they're aliens. You got your ring from an alien. The rings were created by aliens. Okay. Female detective. This is my time. You're a big shot. Noted. Blah, blah, blah. So girl boss already putting him down. Black Lantern tells a white veteran Lantern the old Green Lantern's oath is to protect people. We both know I do a better job of this than you, white man bad. So men bad, white man bad, old men bad. No costume superheroes in the whole trailer. I don't have to be a psychic to see the writing on this wall. Can you see? I'm not the only one saying this. This show will do for Green Lantern what James Gunn did to Superman or ruin him. I'm not the only one saying it, folks. Okay. So let me go back to my bookmarks. So this is the kind of stuff that's been blowing up on Twitter for the past 24 hours. And it's just been insane what people have been saying. And so let me pull this one up. This one made me laugh, and this has been funny as well. I'm going to blow this up so you can see this. So shout out to my friend Lupin Superfan. This is the most tourist tweet I've read this year. Look at what he's saying here. He's an old lantern. He's been at this a long time. His suit has been subjected to earth, sunlight, dirt, grime, cosmic rays, and otherworldly atmospheres for a few decades, Of course, it looks faded, warm, and grimy. Come on, people, use your head. That's the most tourist tweet I've read as well, because the Green Lantern uniforms don't work that way. If you consumed any Green Lantern material, you'd know that. Okay, so once again, these comments have been so ridiculous. Just so ridiculous to me. But they're there. My mentions are still blowing up, completely blowing up. So now here's another one. Now I had a long conversation right here myself, so let me show you this one. And this was interesting. Here's the original tweet I was responding to. Riddell said, something I realized a while ago, especially the last few years watching the online comic space, some of the loudest voices claiming to be experts on these characters only seem to know the surface level version of them. The immediate pushback to the Lanterns teaser has been strange to watch. As a lifelong comic fan, I honestly don't get how people aren't intrigued by this approach. That's a bunch of different things all in the same space. That's a bunch of different ideas. A grounded real world take on Green Lantern with Hal Jordan and John Stewart investigating a murder. That's a fresh angle. Honestly, reminds me a bit of the old Green Lantern, Green Arrow run, where the story piled these characters into grounded situations and real world issues while staying true to who they are. Okay, let me say this. Okay, let me say this with my whole chest. The legitimate criticism that I agree with is that when you have characters that have been around for decades, you now have many different eras or versions of them. I agree with that part. And I agree that it then becomes not possible to please everybody, because everybody's going to want their headcanon version. And so you can't make a version that pleases everybody, although you know what movie did a really good job with that was Iron Man. Iron Man, the first Iron Man movie, we got to see the original armor and him in the cave, straight out of the comics. We got to see the golden armor, and then we got to see him in the red and gold. So that movie did an incredible job of paying homage to the developing nature of his armor and helping us see the most classic versions all in the same film. I thought that was cool. But when you have a long-time character, you are going to hit a point where it's impossible to put all of what their history represents into one film or one whatever. But see, this is the opportunity here is different. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but let me finish this. So when he says, I honestly don't get how people are intrigued by this approach, and I keyed in, not everything has to look like a giant CGI space battle to feel like Green Lantern. Okay, sometimes the most interesting thing you can do with these characters is drop them to the real world and let the mystery unfold. Okay, I got to give pushback on that. And here that comes. And let me say it again with my whole chest. When you are mounting a character, it is true you need to pay attention to the history of that character, but what's also true is that you have to pay attention to who that character has come to be. That seems to be really hard for people to grasp. While at the same time, you're screaming about the evolution and the stage and the eras of that character, you don't seem to understand that there's some things about that character that have stuck over the years, and that means there are therefore expectations. And it's true that some fade with time. For example, people still expect there to be a contrast between Clark Kent and Superman. No one expects Clark to act like Superman when he's Clark, but I don't think anybody expects the changing in the phone booth anymore. That's dated. I don't think anybody expects that anymore, just for an example. You know what I mean? And so, but Superman has still come to mean, all that power and being friendly and being bright and being optimistic and being inspirational. That's who the characters come to mean. When Superman was first created, he was created to be a champion of oppressed people. That was Siegel and Schuster's idea. Okay? Over time, the brighter, more optimistic version, and yes, the Don and Reed film had a lot to do with that, but you can't unscramble the egg. I'm sorry if you don't like that, but that's not going to go away. And so what Green Lantern has come to mean, another one of my favorite examples is, of course, Jean Grey. Said this before and I'll say it again. Jean Grey can only be Phoenix now. She'll never be Marvel Girl again. We don't even call her that. A lot of people don't even know that was once her code name. Marvel Girl was her code name. We don't call her that anymore. Jean can only be Phoenix now. She can only be Phoenix now because the Phoenix Saga forever changed her. So right or wrong, up or down, that's who she is now. So the point I'm trying to get to is that you have to take in context everything the Green Lanterns have become. And if you don't like that, then you're going to have to tell Jeff Johns to throw out the whole rebirth thing, because it was a rebirth thing that got us into the Sinestro Corps War. And it was that whole thing that got us into the multi-patterns of lanterns. The spectrum, whether you like it or not, that's become their mythology now. So I say it because no one that's an actual long-term fan of Green Lantern would want a grounded approach. We would want to see Green Lanterns in their strength. The entire core mythology is translating emotional energy spectrums divided by color into plasma constructs, only limited by the imagination of the ring bearer. Please argue with me. Please tell me that's not who the Lanterns are. Ain't no grounded nowhere in that premise. The approach would work, the grounded approach with the street level hero. So who they want is Green Arrow, Black Canary, Arsenal, the Question, Huntress, Nightwing, Batwoman. Those are the characters that this approach is for. So I got a lot of pushback and a lot of people saying, you haven't seen the show yet, and there's no telling that the cosmic stuff won't be added, but we've seen the showrunners laughing at the character. So then he says this, the idea that no long-term fan will want a grounded approach just isn't accurate. Some of the most respected runs lean heavily onto grounded storytelling and real-world themes. Green Lantern, Green Arrow run from the 70s by Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams, probably the clearest example. Those stories put Hal and Ollie into real-world situations, didn't make the character less Green Lantern. Anything made the mythology stronger. That's what people seem to be missing about the show. Man, no, that's incorrect. What you're missing is that we are not in that time. The reason that worked and the reason that was powerful was because it was in a silver age. So that type of grounding and that type of story was groundbreaking and impactful and challenging to people during that time, like when Speedy was a junkie and all this different kind of stuff. We are not in that place anymore. Because the Matrix, well, Jurassic Park changed everything and the Matrix changed everything. So we are no longer at a place where the expectations for CGI and AI or whatever are low, and we want just grounded stuff with cosmic heroes. We are also no longer in a place, and here's the reason why. Because for the past 10 years, all the social issues have been forced ideology. They haven't been an examination of social issues like this was, an examination of drugs and an examination of racism. No, what we've gotten for the past 10 years has been being beaten over the head by certain ideological philosophies and certain segments of the population telling us how wrong we were not to feel the way they did, and how we're bigots and misogynists and racists and homophobes and transphobes, and how everything we do is wrong and sexist. That's the difference between then and now. So saying that something should be grounded in the now is not the same as grounded back then in the 70s. That's not the same. And it's not going to come off the same. Not by a long shot. There is no chance, if you talk about social issues in 2026, that it's going to come off the same as it did in the 70s. So that is a false comparison. So he said, my point was that Green Lantern should only be grounded. Okay. My point was that judging the entire approach from a teaser is premature. Yet, nope. You don't have to smell the stink. Excuse me, you don't have to eat the meal if you smell the stink coming from the kitchen. How many times have we seen the first look? But see, what people don't want to understand is the fact that this first look is so bad is proof that they don't know what they're doing. You would throw in some green aura. You would throw in some green energy. You would throw in some cosmic stuff. You would throw in something that at least winks at least points to the larger context of the Lantern universe. But that ain't it. That ain't what they did. So I said that in my next tweet, that everything I just said to you, I said that in my next tweet. You can't compare then to now. And the trailer is supposed to stir up excitement. And the Lantern mythology has grown from where it was back then. You can't unscramble that egg. Okay. So people have just been arguing about that, the grounded approach. It needs to be more balanced if you're going to do the lanterns. If you want totally grounded, you need the Question. You need Nightwing, although he's not totally grounded. You need Nightwing, you need Huntress, but Bat Family's not totally grounded. Okay? So it's clear it takes inspiration from Jon Stewart's first appearance on Hard Traveling Heroes, but that's only in the 70s. That's cool, but that's not going to fly now because it's not the same thing, not the same climate. Challenging racism in the 60s and 70s by introducing a Black version of a white character is not the same as a Black version of a white character preaching white man bad, old man bad, get out of my way. Not the same thing. By a long shot. So people keep saying, that you can't tell it from the teaser and you can't judge it or whatever. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. So I said, if you want to see Green Lantern done right, you got to go to animation. Green Lantern, the animated series. This was so good. This was so good. I think they canceled this because it wasn't selling the toys, but this was really, really good. Same reason they canceled Teen Titans and turned it into Teen Titans Go, more toy sales. Okay. Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, where we got Jon Stewart, which is probably the most popular and well-known version of the character, a character that a lot of people have grown up with. Nothing wrong with that. Green Lantern First Flight, one of the better movies because all of the movies weren't really good. But Where My Power was not a good animated feature. Okay. And then I know Ryan Reynolds is in here, but I didn't create this graphic. I was just trying to show how the most accurate and fun and enjoyable versions of Green Lantern have come through animation over the years. They've gotten him right. They've gotten Hal Jordan right in animation more often than not. See that? That's all I was trying to say, because I know Ryan Reynolds is in there. But see what I'm saying? Okay. Keep your comments coming. I'm going to put your comments on the screen because we definitely need to talk about this. Okay, so we're going to go back. Remember, I talked about Firefly first. I talked about Firefly first. Say that 3 times fast. Then Avengers Doomsday, and then Lanterns. Okay. Eric says, I never watched Firefly. I find some of these late 90s and early 2000s with the green screens and early CGI too phony, and it takes me out of the show. That's just me. Some of the stuff was green screen. Some of the stuff was actual locations. I understand that perspective, but not all of it was green screen. But some of that stuff was very much shot in different locations. But Firefly became a cult classic after its airing, after Fox canceled it, because they showed it out of order, and it doesn't make sense out of order. The episodes don't make any sense out of order because Firefly has a very specific storyline, and each one of the characters have very specific arcs. So Fox messed up with that. The characters Wash and Jane were great at comedic beats, and Book was a source of perspective, a moral sounding board. Without these characters, it'd definitely be different. That's right. That's right. Not going to be the same, because one thing Whedon is good at, I know his name is Mud now, and I understand why. But one thing that Whedon is good at is ensemble cast writing. He's really, really good at giving individual characters their own voice. So when it comes to the Firefly cast, if you read a line, you can tell which character said it. You don't have to see them say it. River Tam's speech is specific. Zoe's speech, Jane's speech. You can tell who said it by the dialogue, because Whedon is great at that. So it's not going to be the same without all of them. It just won't be. Star Trek Sitting on the Edge of Forever is the gold standard of butterfly effect stories. So now we're moving into the Avengers Doomsday comics. It condensed theories of time travel and ethical questions to a very human story. So Sitting on the Edge of Forever, that is a bunch of right. It condensed theories of time travel. That's a bunch of different time travel. It's butterfly effect. It's multiverse. It's convergence theory. It's elliptical. It's a bunch of different things at once with the Guardian. Okay. So it showed what would happen if Edith Keeler remained alive and the Germans would win World War II, and the whole world would change and be under, the control of the Third Reich, because Edith Keeler changed history if she lives. So they have to let her die, and Kirk was already in love with her. So they had to stand there and watch her get hit by a car and die. So it is one of the best Star Trek stories, bar none. It definitely combines different things. So it's a great example of how, even if you use different theories of time travel and multiverse existence, it can be done well if the writing is good. It can be done well. If Dr. Doom was portrayed correctly, he could be very similar to Vader, menacing, intimidating. This film will try for that, but too late, because a lot of people will see Downey Stark. Now, that has been my problem from the jump. As soon as you revealed that it was going to be Downey playing it, you lose the impact of Doom. You know what would have been better? What would have been better is that we didn't know who Dr. Doom was. And then there's a reveal at the end of Doomsday. And then we see Downey's face. They shouldn't have blown that at the conference or the convention or whatever they revealed that they shouldn't have done that. That was a mistake. This movie would already be 20 times better if we never saw Dr. Doom's face and we had no idea who was playing him. And they altered his voice through his mask like they did for Vader. And then at the end of Doomsday, there's a reveal scene and we see, holy cow. Then we would go crazy. It would be like the Locutus reveal at the end of Best of Both Worlds. Then we'd have to see the next chapter. Because if you watch TNG Best of Both Worlds, man, you had to see the next chapter. How are they going to get out of this? So if they had saved this reveal as the last shot or a post-credit scene for Doomsday, can you imagine what would happen in the theater if the last shot is Doom taking off his mask and we see that it's Robert Downey Jr.? They shouldn't have blown this reveal. That was a huge mistake. If they had done it that way, that would change everything about this film. Are you kidding me? Doomsday will ultimately go for the fan service and wow factor rather than the storyline. I think so too. I wish that weren't true. But at this point, I think they've kind of written themselves into a corner with bringing back all these characters, because how are you going to craft a story that services all those characters when most of what they can do is going to amount to cameos? What else could it be? You can only spend time with so many characters, and the cast is too big. Dr. Doom kills Cap's son, I won't watch. Also, somehow this will all get played on Peggy, because that was how it was on Agent Carter. Right, if Doom kills Cap's son, we're not going to want to watch that over and over again. Killing kids is just not a thing many people want to see, especially if you have small children, but you don't want to see the children of the heroes. Just nothing about that. So if they go that route, it's going to have a heavy shock value. But the better shock would have been the last scene being the reveal that Doom looks like Tony Stark. That would have been better. But if they kill Cap's son, do you really want to take your kids to see that? A little kid dying? Also, somehow this will all get blamed on Peggy. Possibly. Peggy Carter was better, but she was still too much of a girl boss for me. Even in First Avengers, she's just too attitudey for me. She's just too Lois Lane and just too attitudey. You Captain America, you don't have to put up with that. You Superman, you don't have to put up with that. But a lot of people like their dynamic, so whatever. Agent Carter was, and Captain Carter, I don't like Captain Carter. I don't like her with the super soldier serum and the shield at all. So she was already too far into girl boss character for me anyway. Peggy Carter always has been for me. So maybe they'll blame everything on her, maybe they won't, I don't know. I said last week, Doomsday needs to be at least 2 movies. Yes. You have to flesh out the story. Yes. Too many characters and too much going on for one film. Agree completely. This needs to be a quadrilogy. This needs to be a quadrilogy. I know it's too late for the MCU to have the momentum. They should have done it sooner after letting the franchise rest. I know that. This whole thing, if they were going to bring this back, should have been a quadrilogy. And another thing I want to talk about is that now I no longer think that they're going to make a clean break after this film, because Chris Hemsworth talking about playing Thor some more after these films. So now everybody's first thought was that this was going to be like a scorched earth, clean slate reboot. And I've said this is going to be Marvel's version of Flashpoint. But now it looks like they're going to bring back some of those characters, and if they do, that's going to mess everything up. You need to make a clean break. But bleeding characters into that new reality is going to be, it's not going to pan out like they want. But I agree with everything Airlock is saying here. And I'll take it one step further and say this needs to be a quadrilogy for this to really work like it needs to. Except I don't think the MCU no longer has the clout or the juice to make 4 movies of this work. Okay, good to have you back. Always good to see you. So there are folks saying that the Green Lantern suit hanging in the closet is Alan Scott's. I'm not buying it, although I wouldn't be surprised Alan Scott's shirt was red. Shake my head. Okay, that leads me to the other thing I wanted to talk about. So let me be as plain as I can. So while I agree that multiple characters have multiple eras and you can't do them all and you won't be able to please everybody, I completely agree with that. Let me say this. The opportunity here is to display the full spectrum of Hal Jordan's reality existence, going all the way back and starting with Alan Scott. This is a TV show. So we have a golden opportunity, the only one we're probably going to get in our lifetimes, to go back and meet Alan Scott in the Starheart and go through that whole thing, and then move from that into the Silver Age where we meet Hal Jordan and he meets Abin Sur, and expanding to the Guardians and Sinestro and everything. We have a golden opportunity in this show to showcase the different eras of the Green Lantern mythology. Are you kidding me? That's how I know they don't know what they're talking about, because they can't see that. So we're going to start with old Hal getting replaced by Black Green Lantern. And just, Now, if I'm wrong, I will come on here and say I'm wrong. I'll be happy to be wrong. I don't mind being wrong. I'll be happy to be wrong about this, but I doubt it. I really do. Back to Avengers. If the leaks are correct, I predict a large drop-off for Doomsday. Yes. After opening, because, okay, you're being silly. The fans demand him. Okay, take Atkins, call it Johansson. Yeah, you're being silly. But it'd be funny if ScarJo comes back. I think she's the most done with Marvel, but if that check is right. I guess there was a show in 24 with the Lanterns writer Lindelof saying the Green was stupid. Some say he was joking. Recent history tells me he wasn't. That's right. Yes, that's the video I was talking about. People think he was joking. Like I said, it walks like a duck. Exactly. That's what I've been saying. That's what I've been saying all along. When have we seen a showrunner make fun of the material ahead of time and the show turned out good? She-Hulk, Butt Kick Man. When does that happen? Taika Waititi, I'll ruin your mythos in a minute, baby. Remember that? Getting down on one knee, handing the hammer to Natalie Portman. Do you remember that? Then we got Ragnarok and Love and Thunder, which even Hemsworth himself doesn't like. When have we seen a showrunner, a director, a writing team that has made fun of the source material and the content turned out well? When has that happened? People are also justifying the Lanterns trailer as a throwback to the 70s Green Lantern, Green Arrow. Okay, so I talked about that. But this isn't that. Producers and other staff, True Detective is popular, superheroes are popular, let's put them together. But don't bother me with details, just hire a good actor and make it look like he flies. Perfect summation. You know who else is going to go through this? The X-Files reboot. Because they're bringing back the characters and they're going to be black, and the Scully character is going to do nothing but outshine the Mulder character, and it's going to be a mess. It's not going to be X-Files. We live in a disposable society, so everyone wants the Phoenix right away. They don't want the slow burn like in the comics, right, with Jean or any of these characters. I'm not saying it applies to all, but a good percentage, that's right. That's right. It took them 18 months to 2 years to tell the Phoenix Saga in the comics, and it was glorious. That's why it's still such a major event, because it was glorious. But now we want to meet Sophie Turner in one movie, see her again for a little bit, and she's already Phoenix, then she's Dark Phoenix. And no build. Grounded approach with Green Lantern works well on a short-term basis, but it requires a great team to create a story arc that won't steer the cosmic aspects. I agree, but it's still not going to work the same in 2026. Everything is political. Everything is ideological. As proven by all these tweets, everything is a fight now. It's not going to be the same. Talking about race now is not the same as talking about race in the 60s and 70s. No, it's not. And then the whole gender ideology is coming in. The girl boss character is already there. What are they going to do when they introduce the female Green Lanterns? Katmatui, Aricia, Elira Amoto, you know what's going to happen? And Jessica. Lord have mercy, if they introduce Jessica, you know what's going to happen? They're going to outshine the men in every way possible. Guaranteed. So it's not going to be the same. So trying to say that because Grounded has worked before in the Green Lantern in the 70s, O'Neil Adams, I agree completely, because those are some of the best stories because of the time they were written in. That's not going to be the same thing now, no matter how you cut that. Nope. Just as an aside, I've enjoyed Kyle Chandler, Hal, and WGA. I enjoyed Corn Sweat and Twisters. I thought he'd make a great Superman when I saw him there, and then I saw Buttkick Man and just as an aside, Kyle Chandler always gives a great performance in this scene. GL animated series was amazing, great cast, 5 stars. I'm not saying he can't. I'm just saying even great actors can't save bad material if the take itself is wrong. What did you think of the season 2 Daredevil Born Again teaser? I'm about to commit sacrilege and blasphemy, but I have never liked Charlie Cox as Daredevil. I prefer Ben Affleck. I don't like Daredevil where he doesn't focus on his powers and his sensory deprivation and everything that comes along with being blind with the amplified senses. So the stuff has just been okay to me, and I absolutely can't stand their version of Elektra. I do love Kieran Page. I've always liked her, but they're going to ruin her if they follow the comic storyline. I do like them as a couple before he gets to Elektra. But I have never been the biggest fan. What's his name? Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin is pitch perfect. Visually perfect and personality perfect. I don't think they could have done any better than him. But I haven't overall been a fan of that particular iteration. Sorry, just doesn't do a lot for me. It's just me. Nobody makes fun of Batman driving a Batmobile, but somehow it can be open season on other heroes. That's right. That's right. There's double and triple and quadruple standards all around. It's the truth. So anyway, we talked about a lot today. That's going to be it for me today. Thanks to everybody that watched me live. Remember, tell me in the comments, if I do a live stream starting really late on Thursday and going into early Friday morning, would that be better? Or like some people live stream on Friday night, but I really don't want to live stream on Friday night because most of the time I've got other stuff I'm doing. But I'm thinking about changing the time to get more people involved. So does a late night, Thursday night live stream work for you? Let me know in the comments. And I'm going to put a post, and please answer me on that post too, that if I change my streaming time to that time, late Thursday into early Friday, past midnight or whatever, because a lot of people do that, if that works. Okay. So thanks everybody that watched me live. Please like the video. Please give it a thumbs up and share it. You know that helps. And I'll see you on Twitter because my mentions are still blowing up. So got a lot more stuff to talk about. And so like and share this video, and I'll see you next week, same time, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time for the next weekly live comics chat And then if and when I decide to change the time to get better stock going so we can get more people involved, I will for sure let you know. DT2 Comics Chat.